For the second time in 2 weeks, the United States has deployed 2 aircraft carriers to the South China Sea, the U.S. Navy said on Friday, as China and the United States accuse each other of stoking tensions in the region. The USS Nimitz and USS Ronald Reagan carried out operations and military exercises in the contested waterway between July 4 and July 6, and returned to the region on Friday, according to a U.S. Navy statement. USS Nimitz and USS Ronald Reagan carrier strike groups are operating in the South China Sea, wherever international law allows, to reinforce our commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific, a rules-based international order, and to our allies and partners in the region, Rear Admiral Jim Kirk, commander of the Nimitz, said in the statement. The presence of the carriers was not in response to political or world events, the statement added, but relations between Washington and Beijing are currently strained over everything from the new coronavirus to trade to Hong Kong. Rhetoric has been on the rise in the region, where Brunei, Malaysia, the Philippines, Taiwan and Vietnam challenge China's claim to about 90% of the sea. China held military drills in the sea earlier this month, drawing strong condemnation from both Vietnam and the Philippines, at the same time as the 2 carriers first crossed the waterway for what the U.S. Navy said were pre-planned exercises. U.S. Navy says its carriers have long carried out exercises in the Western Pacific, including in the South China Sea, which extends for some 1,500 kilometers or 900 miles. At one point recently, the United States had 3 carriers in the region. About $3 trillion of trade passes through the South China Sea each year. The United States accuses China of trying to intimidate Asian neighbors who might want to exploit its extensive oil and gas reserves. Meanwhile, 2 U.S. Navy aircraft carriers have resumed rare dual exercises in the South China Sea, the second time this month the massive warships have teamed up in the contested waters. The USS Ronald and USS Nimitz carrier strikes groups, comprising more than 12,000 U.S. military personnel among the 2 aircraft carriers and their escorting cruisers and destroyers, were operating in the South China Sea, the U.S. Pacific Fleet said in a statement. 2 carriers, with more than 120 aircraft deployed between them, were conducting tactical air defense drills to maintain warfighting readiness and proficiency, the statement said. The 2 carrier strike force trains to the highest levels of readiness to ensure responsiveness to any contingency through power projection. The Nimitz carrier strike force, composed of the USS Nimitz and USS Ronald Reagan carrier strike groups, conduct dual carrier operations in the South China Sea in early July. The presence of the Nimitz and Reagan in the South China Sea earlier this month marked the first time 2 U.S. aircraft carriers have operated together there since 2014 and only the second time since 2001. That exercise began on July 4 and Navy Lieutenant Sean Brophy aboard the Reagan said on July 8 that each strike group continues on its respective operational tasking. China protests U.S. Navy activities. China, which claims almost all of the 1.3 million square mile South China Sea as its sovereign territory, reacted harshly to the carrier's presence in the region in early July. The U.S. action is intended to drive a wedge between countries, promote the militarization of the South China Sea, and undermine peace and stability in the South China Sea, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian said at the time. Since then, tensions have increased, with Washington this week labeling most of China's maritime claims in the South China Sea as illegal. The world will not allow Beijing to treat the South China Sea as its maritime empire. America stands with our Southeast Asian allies and partners in protecting their sovereign rights to offshore resources, consistent with their rights and obligations under international law, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said in a lengthy statement. The Chinese embassy in Washington called those accusations completely unjustified. U.S. distorts the facts and international law exaggerates the situation in the region and attempts to sow discord between China and other littoral countries, the embassy said in a statement. A day after Pompeo's announcement, a U.S. guided missile destroyer sailed near the Chinese-claimed Spratly Islands, also known as the Nansha Islands in China. The move was described as a freedom of navigation operation, part of the U.S. Navy's commitment to asserting the rights, freedoms, and lawful uses of the sea recognized in international law by challenging the restrictions on innocent passage. Lawful and sweeping maritime claims in the South China Sea pose a serious threat to the freedom of the seas, including the freedoms of navigation and overflight, free trade and unimpeded commerce, and freedom of economic opportunity for South China Sea littoral nations, Momsen said. The Navy used similar language when the two carriers joined up in the South China Sea again on Friday. Nimitz and Reagan carrier strike groups are operating in the South China Sea, wherever international law allows, to reinforce our commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific, a rules-based international order, and to our allies and partners in the region. The latest deployment was not in reaction to any of the politics of the past week, the Navy statement said. The presence of two carriers in the South China Sea is not in response to any specific political or world events, but is part of regular integration to exercise and develop tactical interoperability. For more than 75 years, the U.S. Navy has been operating multiple carrier strike force operations in the region. China, though, is likely to see things differently. The exercises earlier this month prompted a veiled threat to the U.S. forces and state-sponsored, which called the U.S. carriers nothing more than paper tigers on China's doorsteps and said Beijing has more than enough firepower to defend its positions in the South China Sea. South China Sea is fully within the grasp of the People's Liberation Army or PLA, and any U.S. aircraft carrier movement in the region is closely watched and taken aim at by the PLA, which has a wide range of anti-aircraft carrier weapons like the DF-21D and DF-26, which are both regarded as aircraft carrier killer missiles. But the interactions between the U.S. carrier strike groups and the Chinese Navy were routine. Chinese warships monitored the U.S. exercises, but the operations were professional and safe.